Burton here on behalf of the Australian Leadership Project. We've been honoured to have Michael Cooney, the National Director of the Australian Republican Movement, join us to talk about Australian leadership. We first asked Michael to share his favourite stories of Australian leadership.
I'm a bit of a cricket fan, and I think a bit about the leadership that Australia's cricket captains have shown on the subcontinent in India. Think about Alan Border batting with Dean Jones in 1986 in what became the Tide Test. And I love that story of Jones, who was crook, dehydrated, nauseous in the heat, saying to his captain, "I'm not sure I can go on." And Border saying to him, "Well, okay, fair enough. If you can't do it, we'll get a Queenslander out of you. If you can't do it, we'll get a Queenslander out of you. Fat cat will do it," which was Greg Ritchie. There's something very unempathetic about that style of leadership, but the endurance they showed and the way in which they inspired endurance in each other is quite powerful for me. And I like that it's the story of Australian leadership in Asia. It's not something that happened at Lord's in England or in a traditional space. It's Australians adapting to a changing world. And our later cricket captain, Steve Waugh, similarly really made the Australian cricket team see India as the final frontier and as the ultimate test in world cricket. That was a really interesting example of changing a culture within a group rather than seeing the trip to England as the real high point, forcing them to see India as the final frontier. It was really a powerful change in Australian cricket culture, and I think there's something quite unusual about leadership which actually transforms an environment that doesn't just sit at the top of an environment taking it as a given.
We asked Michael, what are the unique qualities of Australian leadership?
I reckon the great Australian leaders that I've seen or observed, in some cases worked with, fundamentally share the character we like to imagine we share, which is that they are egalitarian. You know, fundamentally Australian leaders lead within their team. They're not, they don't sit above the team and direct it. They get out in front of the group, they take the group places and they transform the group's environment, but fundamentally Australian leaders reflect the equal dignity of the team that they lead. And I think that is something I've seen, whether it's been in politics, my work with Julia Gillard. Julia Gillard was, as a Prime Minister, someone who fundamentally always saw the person serving the food at the event she was at as someone of equal human dignity to her. I've seen the same thing in Australian business leaders. A guy like Cameron Klein, former leader at one of our big four banks, someone who, running a retail business, knows that the people in his branches and the people in their both customers and staff, they are the most important people in the business, and that's who his leadership has to be motivated by. So I think that good Australian leaders are egalitarians.
We asked Michael, what do Australians want of their leaders today?
I can see how much Australians want leadership to change and be better, and it is interesting to think about what they want that change to be, because I think that in part we want leaders to define that. That is actually what leaders should be doing in a way, showing us the new style of leadership. There's huge anxiety and disappointment about division within our society and fragmentation, and about the negativity of leadership in that environment, the way in which our leaders are responding to fragmentation and division by becoming shouty and becoming divisive leadership. I do reckon Australians want our leaders to unite people and bring us together. That's easier said than done, but I think that there's an opportunity for unity that people are seeking from our leaders. We want leaders to articulate what it is that unites us, the symbols of the things we share, and to help us imagine a community that we all share, rather than thinking about the differences between us and the things that make us unlike each other.
We asked Michael, who are the leaders in his life? And he shared a delightful reflection.
My wife's a very interesting leader in my life. She's a person who's led non-government organisations and charities, not-for-profits, and has built some things, I reckon, and has shown me how to build things. Her work hasn't been in politics typically, it's been in crisis accommodation for pregnant women and some other related fields. And my sister has done similar work actually in a different city but in a similar field. I've looked at the way they've taken an idea from sometimes just a germ of an idea that a handful of volunteers might have and raising small amounts of money to running quite large organisations with substantial government service contracts and purpose-built buildings and so on. That's required patience above all else, like genuine strategic patience, the ability to stay on the task, to remain focused on the visionary moment that they had sometimes 15 years earlier and have seen through to fruit. And that's something that hasn't always been in my nature, that patience. Sometimes we all probably seek a bit of instant gratification, and what I've seen in my wife's and sister's style of leadership there, the way they've managed to defer gratification in their leadership has been really powerful.
Well, that's a huge thank you to Michael Cooney and the team at the Australian Republican Movement. If you'd like to comment or share your views on Australian leadership, please visit our website at australianleadership.com or join us on our social media platforms on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter and beyond. Have a great day.